39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. It was near the end of October. Business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you will be entertained by the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
Check, check. There we are. Good morning. All right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the
Great.
Meridian Room in the
Good
Park
morning.
Plaza Hotel in New York.
How are you? All completely awake, I'm sure. I'm on West Coast time. I've never talked about creative this early, for sure. So I'm good in great company, I'm sure. So thank you so much for choosing to spend your first 45 minutes here with me. My name is Lauren Nagel, and I am the Director of Audio Advertising Creative at Pandora. That basically means that I lead a team of about 30 audio creative practitioners, and we push out about 2,000 spots a month, which is, bananas, and pretty much makes us, complete audio nerds. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. Let's see. All right. Because we're talking about audio. Gluten-free, locally sourced, handcrafted, artisanal audio. And I want to take us back to remember really the truly incredible power of audio. I believe that audio is the most effective means for storytelling. David was just talking about canvases. I think audio is the number one most powerful canvas. And I'm so excited to talk about three of my most favorite components of audio and why they're so powerful and how technology is actually amplifying those components and bringing us into what we like to call the audio renaissance. So you're going to hear, everyone's going to talk about storytelling and storytelling. This is what we do, right? We're creatives. We talk about stories. We tell stories. And is there audio up? There's going to be some audio in this presentation. So, a little volume. No, we're going to go back. It's fine. Just close your eyes. Let the silence tell the story. So there it is. All right. So storytelling, right? I want to take us way back to the core of storytelling, way back to literally, sitting around a campfire and telling and listening to the stories of our people and of our history as a humanity. Or if you're me, thinking about Jewish family camp that I went to in the 1980s, and my family wasn't Jewish enough to go myself, so I got to go with my family friends who were met the status of Jewiness to go to Jewish camp, and sitting around a campfire and still to this day being traumatized, right, by the ghost stories that my friends' older siblings told. And a huge reason why those stories have stayed with me is because of that number one most powerful ingredient. Just let it wash over you. There it is. Okay, we're just going to fight for it. Theater of the mind. Theater of the mind. We all know what theater of the mind is. Of course, it is that ability to paint that picture, to engage in your imagination. And audio inspires that more than any other medium. And I think what's so powerful about theater of the mind is that it's actually, it becomes a dialogue with the listener, right? The listener is engaged, the listener is participating, they are creating that story in their minds based on the audio cues that you give them. And this is invaluable for us as storytellers and for advertisers because you are giving the listener agency, they have ownership in your story, and that's half the battle, right? Sound and theater of the mind have the ability to build tension. All right, some of the most kind of like common tropes you could use there, but thinking about how the footsteps come together, how they actually show motion, how you combine that with the actual musical strings, include that heartbeat, and that would be a totally different reveal if the sound of that door was just like ding, you know, like creating tension. It is such a powerful tool with theater of the mind and with sound specifically. You can also demonstrate action. And I think one of the most powerful parts of audio, of course, is creating a sense of place. And this is the rest of my presentation. No. Just kidding. Now we all have to go to the bathroom. So again, what is so powerful about audio for your listener is the fact that they get to participate. You all here right now have a picture of where that is. Maybe you're remembering a vacation. Maybe you're thinking about one that you wish you could take. Maybe you see that specific space in your mind. And we as practitioners get to decide how much we want to leave up to the listener, right? How much we want them to fill in that blank, how abstract or how literal we want to be. My second most favorite ingredient is writing. How many of you guys are writers? Copywriters? Hi-oh. How many of you write emails? Write. Everyone's a writer. Copywriters hate it when you say that. The amazing thing, of course, about audio is that it is inherently a writer's medium. The way that you can get into that innate traditional form of storytelling through words. And we all know that words are extremely powerful, even when brief, right? This is the famous 6-word story that's attributed to Ernest Hemingway. And there's so much that you can do in this space. And when you think about script formats in an audio world specifically, the way that you are able to use your words to tell your story in the most direct way possible is immensely powerful. You don't have to worry about typeface. You don't have to worry about line breaks, but you do have to worry about the delivery mechanism, which is my third most favorite ingredient, and that is the power of the human voice, right? Something so fundamentally unique and personal, much like a fingerprint. At Pandora, we think about casting and the human voice all of the time because we actually have a unique challenge where we need to be able to tell lots of different stories through audio. Maybe it's an advertisement. Maybe we're actually talking about the music you're hearing. Maybe it's a new product feature. And how do we do that in a way that makes sense? My colleague at Work DC talks about voice casting and he calls it voice profiling. And he kind of divides casting, breaks it down into 2 questions. Is this voice genuine? And is this voice connected? By genuine, I mean the performance, right? Is it natural? Is it authentic? Creative trends have definitely moved us away from the like super polished announcer voice. Like nobody wants to hear that anymore. And we are really tapped into, I think, especially as technology advances, we want that organic human experience. It's like why we're all on smartphones and drinking out of mason jars, right? Like the human voice is the mason jar of audio. We want to hear that vocal fry. We want to hear the crack of emotion that comes through the human voice, and that's extremely powerful. And then that second question is this voice connected? And this one's a little bit more complicated because it gets into who this person is, whether or not they're like a celebrity spokesperson, an artist, or actually just the character that the writer has created, right? That is telling this story. And that's when you ask, is this voice culturally relevant? Do we trust this voice as an authority in this topic? Do they have the insights that are going to lead us to believe the story that you're trying to tell? So when you think about all of these three things together, right? The theater of the mind, the fact that this is a writer's game, and being able to tell that story through the most unique kind of thumbprint or fingerprint of the human voice. And what I'm really talking about, of course, is connection. All of this leads to connection, and that is what we're ultimately striving for through storytelling, right? So this is definitely changing now because of technology. Some of these things are at the core of storytelling and through audio and always have been. But I think what we're all trying to achieve in any story that we tell across any medium is that connection, right? David was just talking about, does your audience give a shit? Do they care? How are we making the right choice and not just the choice that might be snazzy? And I think audio in so many ways is like the bastard now of advertising. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, it's super sexy, we're gonna do this viral thing, it's amazing, and I have to do some radio. It's like the totally stepchild of the advertising space. And what's incredible is that we have so much opportunity to get back to this audio medium and how to take advantage of it in this new world. So I really want to demonstrate all of this together with this clip.
Do you want a powerful experience? Just listen. This is what it sounds like to make memories. And to make history.
I have a dream today.
This is how you take an audience on a journey.
Global CalLink prepaid call from
Adnan Sayed.
A home appliance salesman named Johnny Cash helped create a new music.
And how you give a brand a voice.
Oscar Mayer had a way with biology and
Budweiser. Combo that for Motel 6 and we'll leave the light on for you.
This is adventure.
In the War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
Master Chief, all hail the conqueror.
It's a low growl, flashes of teeth, and the smell of gunpowder.
This is personal.
Hey, we know how you feel. Our commute used to suck too. So we need an app for that.
Yo, Taylor. I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
You sacrificed for us.
Happy birthday.
You the real MVP.
This is the power of audio.
So you get it, right? I mean, you just feel it. You put yourself in that position. It makes you recall maybe some of the visuals that you recognize from those ad campaigns, or maybe your experience at a baseball game, or hearing, War of the Worlds is what I was playing as you walked in. The power that audio has as a medium is something unparalleled to all of our other canvases that are available to us. So why do we care? Why should we care? It's our job as marketers, right, to understand who our audience is and how they are behaving. Something super fun about working in creative at Pandora is actually that all of our creative teams are under one umbrella. So our advertising creative team is under the same VP as our product design team, as our brand design team, as our custom station team. And what that means is that we essentially just all get to nerd out together. So our product design team is very, very interested in how users are behaving on the Pandora platform, right? And we get to take those learnings and apply them to advertising. We see advertising, the listening experience on Pandora as one big thing. Then we take the learnings we learn through advertising and apply them to the way we brand our own brand through Pandora and beyond. We recently started doing artist audio messages. So artists are on Pandora leaving messages for their fans that are geo-targeted, that are like, hey, New York, I'm coming to New York, I'm going to be playing here, and it's targeted to those stations where the listeners are already listening to that music. But all of those scripts came from what we learned through advertising. So it's one big kind of crazy happy family where we're thinking constantly about how our listeners are behaving. And let's go into just a little bit of data. This is my friend Mike Pouncey, who's one of our developers. And I was like, oh, you're in my deck on some of the boring stuff about numbers. But that's fine. So here's Mike Pouncey, very happy, sitting in his hipster cafe, listening to music while there's a piano next to him. Just noticed that in the photo. So 75% of people say that music is their top choice of entertainment, of all entertainment. Music, audio experience. And I think it's because music, of course, has a lot of the same inspirational imagination triggers as audio in general. Americans spend about 4 hours per day with audio, and that number is growing. And there are all different kinds of audio these days, right? This has evolved. What we're super interested in, of course, at Pandora is the way that people are finding specifically streaming radio. What's interesting about this to me is that, of course, we're like, well, why are you listening to streaming radio now or streaming audio? Where is that time coming from? And you'll see that a lot of folks are replacing their terrestrial radio experience or they're replacing their owned music. But what is insane to me is that bottom number. That audio is so powerful, we're actually finding new time in our day for it. That's bananas when it comes to all of the responsibilities we have, right, to our audience and how they're behaving. But this ain't your grandpa's radio anymore, right? Even though this is a super sweet receiver that you can barely see. We are listening to audio, and we are listening in new ways, very new ways. Of course, everybody knows that mobile changed everything, right? Mobile changed the game for all of us. This is kind of terrifying to me. I feel like I'm always the person at the concert who's like, put your phone down, live in the moment. But whether we like it or not, mobile is everywhere. Mobile has changed the way that we consume everything, and audio, of course, is in that camp. How is it that audio follows us everywhere, that is actually ubiquitous across all these different devices? So we can wake up and have audio in our alarm clock. We have audio on our home devices as we're getting ready for work. We've got audio in our cars or on our smartphones as we commute. We've got audio on web platforms as we're working. Obviously, everyone listens to Pandora at work. We have audio while we're working out. Then we get home again, and there's frickin' audio in your dashboard on your refrigerator, and in your toaster and stuff. And it's everywhere. And voice is really the new touch, right? Think about Siri or Alexa. I was actually practicing this last night in my hotel room, was going over my notes and was like, think about Siri. And my phone kept being like, what can I do for you? Which is like, yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then there's also a really powerful component of mobile because we're in the earbud nation. We're constantly in earbuds. What does that do to the physical proximity of sound? That's an incredibly powerful and personal connection. There's literally nothing between that sound and your imagination. But the other environment that I really want to talk about is the actual sonic environment. The sonic environment has also shifted. It's not just through mobile that things have changed. For advertising, I mean the ad load, the length, and of course the targeting. So what does that mean? If you think about just like your standard kind of radio ad, right? In many, many streaming services or podcasts now, you are not writing a message that is going to live within an environment of like 20 other messages. We are no longer in the day and age of 6 to 12 minute ad breaks. which of course is an advertiser's dream. But what's so shocking to me is how little we are adapting creative under this new sonic environment. If we now do not have to compete with all of these other messages, why are we still shouting? Right? You don't have to do that. You can take all of the effectiveness of theater of the mind and maybe be more subtle with your production and not overproduce the crap out of and make us all schizophrenic in our brains as we are kind of oversaturated with all of these sounds. The same goes for ad length. No more are we in the world of a minute or a minute and a half or 2-minute audio ads. Holy crap. I have had the honor of being a judge for the One Show Awards this year, and I'm so used to a 30 seconds and under storytelling medium through audio that listening to spots that were a minute or a minute 30 or more than a minute 30 in the radio space was bananas for me. Crazy. I would have to start it over. I'm like, okay, let me pay attention. And they're brilliant spots, brilliant storytelling, incredible sound design. I just don't have that attention span anymore. And nobody else does either, which is also terrifying. But that is the truth, right? So how are we adjusting our storytelling practices to a much, much shorter length of time? And finally, targeting. Targeting is like super creepy and a little big brother. But if you look at actually the creative opportunities within targeting, they are limitless. Another thing that drives me crazy is when I see an advertiser paying for the incredible targeting and audience segmentations that might be available and then hit that very specific audience with a totally generic message. How do we let the power of targeting? You will know who is listening, on what device they're listening, at what time of day, and to what kind of content. The opportunity there is insane because you can talk directly to that person in a very targeted way. And that, of course, again, leads me to content. Content has changed. We're not just relying on AM, FM radio to tell us kind of what's popular and what's hitting the airwaves these days. We have all of these different methods, be it streaming radio or podcasts or different sorts of content programs where we're seeing fusions and hybrid content. This is a slide I borrowed from our sales team, but what you're seeing here is an example of like content programs, and this is just one that's on Pandora. This was for Ford. It's Ford Country Built. And the opportunity here was that Ford, of course, wanted to reach their specific audience, and on Pandora, we're going to do that through music. So we looked at who they were interested in talking to and the kind of music that that audience was listening to. And we developed a special hybrid custom program where we enlisted this cool ass looking dude, Otis Gibbs, who is this incredible country music historian, has a country music podcast, knows more about country than any of us know about anything, to host a program where he was bringing in emerging artists in country music that we could see on Pandora. Their spins were going up, their data is coming up, but they're kind of new in the world. They're still being discovered. And we paired exclusive recording sessions with those artists with the music of the icons and legends that these artists were influenced by. And the way that technologically works on Pandora is that we were then able to also pair that with content from the music genome. I'm going to get nerdy for a second. So Pandora, of course, is powered by a music genome that is tracing the DNA of every song and mapping that DNA together to form the relationships that make the playlist, et cetera, et cetera. How we put all of that together to tell a beautiful story about where country music is going and how to talk to that specific audience about that power through Otis Gibbs.
Hi, friends. I'm Otis Gibbs. I'm a songwriter based here in Nashville, and I want to welcome you to Country Built on Pandora, brought to you by the new Ford F-150. I'm passionate about the history of country music, and I'm looking forward to guiding you on this journey. In this first episode, The Roots of Country, we'll go back to the beginning to explore how this incredibly diverse American art form took shape. Then down the road a bit, we'll dive deep into rockabilly and outlaw country. On this station, you'll hear some of the most influential country songs of the past century, and I'll also share personal stories from myself and a few special guests about the past and future of country music. I'll be back.
All right, so you can imagine what that sounds like. And Otis sounds exactly like you'd want him to sound, right? That is that authentic, genuine, connected voice performance that we're talking about. And how do we do this? Pair with a brand, with a band and their fans. Looks like Dr. Seuss wrote that, but to create a really powerful experience for the listener that is brought to you by an advertiser. And we are not going to hit you over the head with that advertiser because it would be inauthentic for Otis Gibbs to be talking about the traits of a Ford F-150 truck, right? We had a separate voiceover that went with this that would be in an ad that came on after you had listened to 4 or 5 songs that was very short to kind of talk about that and lead you right back into the content. So again, how do we put all of this together? How are we thinking about the different kinds of audio content that exist out in the world? What are our listeners listening to? And how does that context affect our creative? So the biggest thing, Pouncy found some friends. He moved from one hipster bar to another hipster bar. The biggest thing that I will say about this new space of audio is that it is both personalized and personal. The content itself is personalized. This is about what you want, what you're listening to, what your preferences are in wherever you are. And that's the part that's personal, right? There is nothing between getting good audio experience right now. Let it happen. There's nothing between you and that sound. That physical proximity makes it extremely personal. And this all coming together is why we're calling it the audio renaissance. Because we have the power right now to use audio in entirely new ways. People are listening in new ways through innovative mobile and sonic environments that create more personalized and personal experiences than ever before. And we're right at the beginning of this. I mean, I get so excited about it because we're the possibilities are endless, and we as practitioners have not tapped into this yet. So let's take us back. Hi-oh. It was either that or the boo-boo-doo-boo, boo-boo-doo-boo, boo-boo. So if we think about these 3 components, right? These are my favorite ingredients. If we think about how they all work together in this new space, how are these 3 things influenced by technology? How has technology actually shifted the way we might think about these components? So again, that theater of the mind experience. If you know that people are listening in earbuds, how are you creating 3D experiences? How are you panning audio from left to right? How are you showing that the helicopter is actually coming from behind you? The possibilities there are really endless. What might you do differently if you knew someone was listening in a car? What might you do differently if you knew that someone was listening during a commute specifically? All of those possibilities really lend themselves extremely well to how we might shift our production through theater of the mind and our sound design. And I said this before, but I'll say it again. I think there's actually an opportunity here to also be a lot more subtle, to do a lot more with a lot less, because you're already having such an intimate experience that you don't need to hit someone over the head with all this crazy overproduction. For writers, speaking of doing less with more, I was talking about length, right? How can we evolve audio formats? We are no longer in the space where we need to rely on like a dramatic dialogue and then an announcer coming on and telling you the value message. What does a dramatic skit look like now and sound like now in this new audio space? What does a testimonial sound like? How can we tell these stories directly with our words in this new environment? And I do want to take a second here on the very small platform that I have to also encourage all of us to tell these stories in our words in 30 seconds or less without, call me crazy, relying on sexist, racist, heteronormative stereotypes. Crazy, I know, but I'm also a woman talking about audio creative. And this is just to say I know that we can do better. I know we can do better. We can do better. It's exactly what David was saying. We have to actually put action behind our words. And I think that something happens when you have less time, that you go for that low-hanging fruit, or you go for what you think the easiest method is going to be. And we end up marginalizing so much of our audience, and we are all very smart, and we are the audience, and we hear that shit and we turn it off. So I think that we can do better in this space. Finally, the human voice, the infinite, intimate power of the human voice. The other day I was driving home and I was listening to KCSM 91.1 Jazz, which makes me feel smart. And the DJ's name is Lee Thomas, and he has this kind of crackly voice that you'd expect from a jazz DJ. And he says, "I'm Lee Thomas. Thank you for inviting me in." And that is the power of the human voice through audio, right? And when you think about that power in a new mobile environment, in the earbuds, you are literally the voice in someone's head. And that is a huge honor and a huge privilege. And I encourage all of us to use that privilege wisely. That is it. Need like a... You can put the ocean sounds back on. Are there any questions? Any stories, feelings? Yes, you first. Thank you.
Of cultures that don't live in as wired of a world. They have access to the internet, they're very texty oriented, but they still tell a lot of stories.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is when I'm on the phone with someone from any of these countries, I'm like, well, I only get half of it, guys, because I can't see you. Because part of the communication and my memory communication of their voice is about how they talk about things, right? And it's about the aroma. That is, they'll either give you extraordinarily detailed, or they'll spray it in the air and you have to grab at the molecules and try and put it together. But they know how to play with storytelling in that way. And this is one of the most innovative things that I've heard in a very long time.
Right.
With our humanity and the who of us, and how do we integrate in all of our different communities. I mean, the great thing about America is we are the melting pot, you know, and it does create both tension, and friction can be creative, but it also can create harmony. And so I really want to have some chats with you afterwards, but wow. Really.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think I think you're tapping into exactly what is so exciting about this, that we're actually returning to something that is so core to all of us, but technology has actually amplified us to be able to do that even better. And that gap, it's like we know the technology exists, we know that audio is really powerful storytelling, and we as practitioners haven't yet put all of that together, and we can do more there. So it's really exciting. Yes? Sound, yeah.
Because 2496 is what we're used to in the studio.
Yep.
So, or 192 now.
Mm-hmm.
But what is Pandora doing to not only
Totally. That's a great question that I probably won't be able to nerd out on as much as I want to up here, but we can talk later. And like we can talk about product things. Like, oh, we're at 320. Like, we can totally go there. But I think it's really interesting thinking about how to address the folks who get that, who really tap into it, where the quality of the sound is a value point for them. And then the vast majority of people who cannot tell the difference. And how do we make sure that we're actually servicing both? How do we make sure that the resources we're putting into it are the best experience possible? And we're really doing that for the artists. Like, we want that music to play the way the artist intended it to play. I'll never forget Jay-Z's producer coming to Pandora to speak, and he talked about producing tracks that he would load onto his phone and put on his kitchen counter and listen to it that way, because that's how his daughters were consuming music. And he wanted to make sure that all of these incredible beats that he were making actually sounded good in that space, not in the $300 Beats by Dre headphones, because most people don't have them. And are we making, did everyone, I don't know if you saw the Miles Davis movie recently, it's great, but he talks about social music. We're making social music. And so pop, especially in so many ways, is social music. And how do we make sure that our quality is staying true to the artist's intentions in a way that is relevant for listeners? So that's like the philosophy behind it. And then the real talk part is that there are things coming that I'm probably not supposed to talk about. Whatever. It's fine. It's not like this is being filmed. So there are things coming. Yeah, right? We're safe. We're friends. I'm on a microphone. It's fine. There are things coming that I think will offer those options to the people for whom it matters. Yeah. Yeah.
How is that either degradation of audio or extreme bliss of like studio quality sound, how is that affecting the way that you guys are telling your stories and shorts?
Totally love that question. And we think about it, we try to hit that middle ground. We certainly have the standards of like, if it's under 196, don't even talk to me, like get out of here, which is crazy because a lot of people are repurposing terrestrial radio spots to play on Pandora, which it hurts me. It hurts me so bad. Because, for a lot of reasons. One is because terrestrial radio is a very different environment. So your creative is not going to be as effective, number one. Number two, Pandora has an internal creative team that will make your shit for you for free. Take advantage of them. Number three, we can do better, again, in that production space because the environment is different and take advantage of the targeting, the genre of music. So something we think about a lot is what genre of music is this ad playing in? If this ad is playing in a classical music setting, there is a perceived volume difference. So we'll get complaints. This ad was super loud, and we go and we look at it, and it's like, no, it's just that you are listening to the Baby Lullaby station, and then you got a Lexus ad. And how do we make sure from a quality and from a creative point of view that those things align as much as possible? And again, that's an opportunity that we have. And again, I love what David was saying about great ideas sometimes not feeling scalable. Like, let's just fucking do it. Like, we're producing over 2,000 spots a month. Like I said, we can do it, and we can do better. And yeah. We're friends. Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, so South by Southwest totally goes along with this whole talk, just for folks who don't know what it is, because we actually do a live audio stream from Austin, from South by. What is really interesting about that is that it's not a video stream. It's audio. And it's because Pandora is an audio platform and people are able to consume audio in more ways, like I talked about, than they are video. You need that screen. You need the watch. You need the thing to consume the video, but you can consume that audio no matter where you are. And South by is one of those things that Everyone probably in New York knows what it is. In Austin, you know. In the Bay Area, you know. In LA, you know. And nowhere else. And no one gives a fuck what that is. You know what I mean? People are like, what? It feels like a hipster kind of insider conference. And what we wanted to do was, how do you participate in this very important event in the industry and take that in-person event that will reach maybe a couple thousand people in Austin and back into the digital space where it will reach millions of people. And so, yes, we partner with AMG, there we go. They changed recently. Thank you. To put on a live stream where our venue in Austin is hosted. I'm actually one of the hosts at night by folks who work at Pandora and music experts, and our entire performance goes out into the ether. There are a million teams involved with that because it's important to artists, it's important to listeners, it's important to advertisers, it's important to the Pandora brand, it's important to all of the brands that sponsor it. And again, we want to do that in the most cohesive way as possible on Pandora in an audio platform. So we think a lot about, how is this relevant? Does it make sense for you all to hear me talking about Americana? Does it make sense for you all to hear me talking about hip hop? Does my quality of my voice and my story come through in a way that is genuine and connected? Is the quality of this audio really bringing it to life in the live space? So we think about everything that I just had up here specifically for that live experience. And what's rad is that South by has been our kind of beta for about 3 years, and now live streaming is built into our product. So we're going to see a lot more of it. Yeah. Anything else from somebody else? You didn't even hear me. We're good? Great. Thank you so much.